there used to be spaces in between,
Yeah.
and now it's one huge city.
Where here?
Yes, between E and F. Because these aren't public comments about the things, these are public comments about anything. So then we're gonna put her here and then we're gonna have public.
Right up there, up there, that's three. When you first come in. Yep, three, three left.
Mhm. Okay.
But I can see what on public comments. Sounds-
Okay, right. I tried to read through this, right? I read through it last night.
Huh?
It's pretty interesting. It was interesting, I thought. I don't know why, maybe I was.
I wasn't. That's what I'm like, right?
No, I wasn't. I just, yeah, it's,
There's a little study.
Yeah. yeah.
We'll see if it's gonna get shot.
Well, yeah. It's-
Oh.
Right?
Is Trevor coming, do we know?
Yeah, there he is.
Great. How you doing? Hot enough out there for you?
All right, let me go. So we're gonna add a couple of things. So Catherine's gonna go.
Okay.
It's gonna give a presentation right for the public. And then there are, this is the public notice, and then, Tasha just said that that's what these do. This is the same text as this. This is just the one we saw previously. It has everything filled in. This one has blanks in it. Where we would put our sections.
Okay.
It's the same text. And then Catherine's gonna look at the text to the public hearing, so that she can explain it to everybody. So that we don't have to try.
Should be good.
Thank you, ma'am.
The volume, I don't know. Okay.
Thank you. Time is it clock, right?
Yep. 7 straight up.
Oh, 7 straight up. Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 7 PM. And we can stand to the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do a roll call. Anita Manley here. Dave Marcelletti.
Yeah.
Cheryl Bull is here. Trevor Phillips.
Here.
Jason Bull.
Here.
Quickly as of note, we will be approving the minutes from our July 10th meeting at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is Tuesday, August 14th. Wednesday, August 14th. I'm sorry. Yeah, not Tuesday. It's Monday today. Oh. So that's just a note there. So we won't be doing that. And then we need to approve the agenda. So
You have changes?
yes, we do have changes to the agenda. Catherine Kaufman will give a presentation. We're going to put that between public comments and the opening of the public hearing
Between E and F.
between E and F. Yes.
Okay.
So I need
So
a,
it's the new E.
yeah, it is the new E.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with changes noted.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. The agenda is approved as noted. I'll let you catch up for a second.
Yeah. So who was that? Jason and
Jason and Trevor. Welcome, everybody, tonight. Thank you for coming and being part of our public hearing this evening. We hope that it's informative for you, and I think it will be. Were there any, to the board, were there any communications received or at all? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Just a few permit stuff and then about the
Oh.
meeting tonight.
That Tasha sent,
Yeah,
that Tasha
yeah.
sent through? Yeah. Okay. All right, and we have all of that. You have that on record. Okay, all right, great. And then are there, so we're gonna do public comments now, and then we're gonna do public comments during the public hearing. So if anybody has a public comment now about anything other than what we're meeting tonight, you can go ahead and give that. When you stand up to give a public comment, if you could give your name and your address and then keep your comments to about 3 minutes, that would be great. We'd appreciate it. We'll kind of watch the time for you. But does anybody have any public comments to make about anything other than battery storage, renewable energy?
Yeah, I do. Bev Share,
Uh-huh.
52nd Street. Do I have to say my house number?
I don't.
20720 52nd Street. And the comment that I have, the general comment that I have is a lot of people say they don't get the reminder. But for the ones that do get it and do read it, I do appreciate when there is a heads up about something in the reminder. I believe someone has been doing that out of their own pocket. But I do recall at some point, the planning commission had said, we want a simple notice saying, hey, there's gonna be a public hearing,
Mhm.
not the legal written description, but we
Right.
wanted that in the reminder or some other local papers. Because that would be lower cost, but then give people a heads up, because
Yep.
you can't expect people to look on the website all the time. And then a lot of times the things aren't on the website anyway, so there does need to be figured out a way of communicating with the community, because all my neighbors say, what? I didn't even know. I mean,
Yeah.
no one knows anything that's going on with the township, and
And we have been doing that.
there's gotta
No,
be
we have not. I thought we put a couple.
some ways to know.
Okay.
Oh, it's not?
Oh, you haven't gotten an approval yet.
You
Okay,
have authority to let me send it.
okay,
The board was supposed to do that. It did go to the board. It got reported to the board, and then that's the last I heard of it.
okay,
We'll bring it up.
So that's my comment.
okay. Thank you, Beth.
I think there's a new word since that had happened.
Okay. All right, thanks, Beth. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay. Close public comments at, I don't know what time it is, Jason, if you could tell me.
I don't think we need.
No,
to-
you don't need to put the time, okay, okay. And then, Catherine is, you want to introduce yourself,
Sure.
Catherine? Okay,
I'm Catherine Kaufman. I'm a partner of Welcome Sol in Portage, Michigan. We are the general counsel for the Michigan Townships Association, and we are very, very involved in renewable energy. I have been a consultant to the MPSC on developing their guidelines right now. So we are front and center on the ground floor of all this. I am your planning commission attorney. I am not the lead attorney for this township, but I am the planning commission attorney. And they have asked me to come out and do a presentation on what the new law requires or provides, or what our authority is as a township under the new law. And then talk about what your options are, developing not only a battery storage ordinance, but then also companion ordinances for wind and solar, and answer any questions. So that's why I'm here tonight. I am in your backyard. I live in South Haven. I often see people at Myers, who remind me that I am your attorney, so I'm happy to be here tonight. This is my, let's see if I can get this going. All right, that's my contact information. I have a few cards up front if anyone's interested. So as general counsel for the Michigan Townships Association, which most townships in the state belong to, We have a front row seat in advocacy. We were very involved in, protesting against this law. We lost. But now we've had being able to work at the MPSC in terms of drafting their guidelines, how they're going to apply the law. If you look back at any of the meetings that have happened on this, I was a panelist in 2 or 3 of them. You'll see me talking, when you get to be here for free, right here tonight. So, we're gonna talk about what is this legislation? What are the different processes under Public Act 233 in terms of the township's authority to regulate or ordinances for renewables? What we have left as our power, in the township, what should we do and what should we think about as we move forward? This presentation is a stripped down version of what myself and my law partner gave at the Michigan Townships Association conference in April, so it's a little bit outdated. I'll tell you where the changes are, what we know more since April. This is a very much in transition, happening very fast, because the act went into effect, it was approved by the legislature in November of 2023. It goes into effect in November of 2024. The ballot petitions did not get the sufficient number of signatures to put this on the ballot in November. So for better or worse, we're in as of November 29th, 2024. Okay, so there were 2 statutes, 2 acts that went into adopted by the legislature last year. Most of what we're talking about is Public Act 233. It contains the vast majority of the rules. It was signed into effect November 28th of last year. It goes into effect November 29th of this year. So we had 1 year to take this whole change of law. And with the Michigan Public Service Commission, who generally deals with rates and stuff like that for utilities, they've never had to deal with that like this before. There's been an extensive amount of work ongoing for the last year on how they're going to implement this. The Companion Act of Public Act 234 of 2023, that amended the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. It added vested rights, and we'll talk about that. I have a slide coming up. That part of the statute, that statute already took place. It's already effective as of February of this year. I forgot my mouse. Is anyone else like, I can't do this without a mouse, so I'm very sorry. We're gonna go back if we can. I don't know if we can. Let's see.
The arrow keys.
I'm trying, I'm pushing, but nothing's happening. All right, anyways, flow charts. I don't know how to,
Escape.
escape. Okay, that isn't what we wanted. Okay, let me see. I think I can do this. I'm hitting the arrow keys. Nothing's happening.
Catherine, what if you went down? We're gonna take one more time.
I'm on the arrows.
There was some icons down here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. Let's just see if I can move it in any way. Ah. All right. Sorry. If anyone's good at computers, come on up here and help me.
There's looking for a mouse.
Well, that would be lovely.
Would it sync up with your computer?
Who knows?
Sorry, she thought she needed that wire. No, she needs the awareness for that. She needs that.
I don't know. What if we just try and start moving over again? Oh, there, something you did. It's allowing us to touch, all right. They're right there, all right, stop. But don't go me, all right? Okay, Public Act 233, this is the big one. It makes significant changes to the permitting process for utility scale, that's what we call the big projects. Renewable energy, solar, wind, battery storage. And I think battery storage is what you're talking about here. It allows developers for projects over a certain size to go straight to the state of Michigan to completely ignore your local zoning process and get approvals at the state. And as it says here, it severely limits local control. Let's see if this will work now. Okay, this statute, I'm gonna sit down if that's okay with everyone, so I can keep.
Everybody hear Catherine okay over there?
All right. So what this did to Public Act 234, which is even even more, interesting, and this was added the day before the law was enacted. My law partner, Robert Saul, was involved every single day of this legislation. We were up at night. This came in less than 24 hours before it was approved. And what it says is, if you had a renewable energy project that got special land use approval on or after January 1, 2021, it's considered to be a prior non-conforming use, and you shall not, as a municipality, revoke the special land use or change it at all if substantial construction has occurred. And then it defines substantial construction as either 10% of the project cost or $10,000, whichever is less. Now, these project costs are $100 million. But if you've spent 10,000, which is basically, I put in an access road, okay? I have now perfected my right and you can't change it. Normally under special use approval, when your township gives a special use approval, if somebody doesn't meet the conditions, you have the ability to revoke that approval. You have the ability to call them in front of you and say, you know, you need to do what you said you were gonna do, or we're gonna pull back your approval. This law, which went in at the last second, that my law partner didn't even see it till it was adopted, changed everything. So I have a project, I have a township over by Olivet that I represent, that already has approved 2 projects. One is the largest in the state right now. It's 809 megawatts, it's 8,000 acres, okay? And we proved it all with, well, if you don't meet these standards, we can go back and revoke your special use, we can do this, we can do that. Look what this did to us. It completely changed the landscape of how we can regulate that project. It stripped us of our local zoning authority to regulate that project. So this really changed very clearly, what you can approve, how you can approve it. If they don't like what you're doing, they can leapfrog over you, go to the state. And if we do approve it after January 1, 2021, your authority to enforce is somewhat limited, all right? So keep that in mind. This is the projects that applies to 50 megawatts or larger of solar in the nameplate capacity across the entire project. So it could be a couple different locations in 2 different townships, but as long as they together are 50 megawatts and they have one point of connection into the grid, into the energy grid, that's 50 megawatts. 100 megawatts for wind, 50 megawatts for battery storage, which I think would meet the project that you're looking at here possibly, and expanding projects. If any of these projects expand and they put over this number, they can go straight to the state. So we won't talk too much about all the details of it, but in the law, under Public Act 233, it specifically says what your regulations can be in your township. So for instance, for wind, if you were gonna get a wind project here, the maximum, you know, the setbacks would be 2.1 times the maximum blade tip height. So when I started doing this, you might not realize how old I am, but I am old. You know, I had a wind project up by Muskegon that was 495 feet tall. And it went through the whole process and ultimately the project died, but now the wind turbines are 600 to 700 feet tall. So if we were the maximum setback we can put on that tower, if it's 600 feet, is 2.1 times the blade tip at its maximum height. So 600 feet times 2 is 1,200, another one would be 0.1, 1,260 feet. Ice throw can go over 1,000 feet. Okay, so what this is telling us in the state law is, this is the maximum setback you can have in your regulations, okay? 1.1, and that's to the nearest outside wall of an occupied non-participating building. You're gonna start seeing these terms like non-participating parcel, non-participating building. That means I'm not leased in, I don't have any relationship to this project, I am near to it, but I'm not part of it, okay? And even when we look at your text amendment, we'll get tonight, we have that definition kind of in there. But 1.1 times the maximum blade tip to the outside wall of a participating property. So I have a house, I'm leased in, you're gonna put a turbine on my property. It's only 1.1 times the height to my house, 600 feet. So I have essentially exposed myself to some possible danger, but I leased in. And this is what the law, so when I did the project up by Muskegon, we were requiring, I think it was at that time, we didn't know as much as we do now, 1,500 feet or more, maybe 1,600 feet from any to property line. It's different if you go property line versus to building. Do you understand that? To go to property line, it could be a much bigger setback because you're forcing that setback all within your parcel, all right? Sometimes setbacks will be within participating parcels. So if I have two farm parcels right next to each other, I'm not gonna insert an artificial a line, a setback line in the middle of them. If they're both leased in, the setback could be within those parcels. But the minute there's a non-participating parcel, you know, is the setback gonna be to the edge of that building on that parcel? Or is it gonna be the property line? If in fact it's to the edge of the building, what if a new building comes in after? Well, they have come, you ever heard the term come to the nuisance? They've come to the nuisance. They have put themselves within realm of the fall zone or the throw zone of the wind turbine. So when we start talking about setbacks, we have to figure out, is it to property line, which is how we generally understand setbacks, right? Or the state has now determined it is to edge of an occupied building on a non-participating property, right?
the law.
That's in the law. This is the law. So it also talks about 55 decibels at measured from the nearest dwelling. Again, that's the noise. No more than 55, but measured at the nearest dwelling. So it's not at the property line, it's at the nearest dwelling, right? So think about that. If it's, and if it's real loud, but there's nobody to hear it, you know, if there's a tree fall in the forest, etc. So think about that. Shadow flicker. We probably won't see many wind projects here, but just so you know, shadow flicker is when the turbine turns and it throws a shadow, okay? This says 30 hours per year on nearby community buildings or non-participating residences. This is what the industry says is their normal. They want you to be able to accept, hopefully that'll go back on. 30 hours a year, I have to have this shadow going across my house. There is the ability through the software to have 0 hours per year on your house. They set the software on each turbine and they graph it all out and they know from the sunrise, sunset, it's all computer. And they know where the house is that's non-participating. And the minute that goes to put a shadow on that house, the software can turn off the turbine to the point for the period of time when they will be throwing a shadow on a non-participating house. But the state has said to us, you have to take 30 hours per year of shadow flicker on your house. So this is our law, lighting, etc. This is our law right now, as you know, better or worse, solar. So I don't know if you have solar here yet, but if you don't have solar here yet, it's probably coming, okay? What the state law says, 300 feet from an occupied non-participating building. Well, one of the things we talked about to the MPSC is what's an occupied non-participating building? Well, we know a house is occupied. What about a barn? What if somebody works in a barn? What if somebody has a shop? What if somebody has, you know, some type of accessory structure on their building that they do work in? Is that an occupied dwelling? MPSC, how are you going to decide what's an occupied dwelling? 50 feet from the road right away, 50. Okay, so a parking space is generally 20 feet deep. So we're talking about 2 parking spaces and another 10 feet. Okay, 50 feet from a non-participating property line. So you didn't sign into this project, but your neighbor did. 50 feet from your property line, the panels can go. Okay, this is our state law now. All right, maximum height at full tilt, 25 feet, 2 stories. What we've normally seen is 16 feet. If you see them along 131 by Western Michigan University, 15 feet. You see them at Michigan State University where they pull the cars under them, 16 feet. This law, our state law says 25 feet at maximum tilt. So the panels, you know, they raise and tilt depending on where they're getting the sun, but at maximum tilt, 25 feet high. That's pretty high, okay? Fencing, we must have fencing that complies with the National Electrical Code and dark sky friendly lighting. Well, I don't even know why that's in there, but it is. If they have dark sky friendly lighting. Battery storage, almost the same as solar, 300 feet from non-participating occupied buildings. Okay, so somebody's bought a parcel, it's near your house. They just have to have these storage containers with lithium-ion batteries in them, 300 feet from your building. When I was doing these wind project by Muskegon, a lot of the non-participating property owners said, you are effectively taking my property because I am no longer gonna put anything within that setback area, okay? You put a turbine here, it can throw ice 1,000 feet. You're telling me it only has to be set back the height of the turbine, which is 600 feet from the property line. But now I'm never gonna put anything closer on my own property to you. Here we have 300 feet for a non-participating occupied building. That's a house, we know that, but what about, you know, what about other things, accessory structures, barns, whatever, is that occupied? 50 feet from the road, 50 feet from a shared property line, noise, 55 dBA, measured from the nearest dwelling. Doesn't even say occupied building, that's dwelling. They must comply, it's really important that you have within any ordinance that they comply with NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency Code 855 regarding lithium-ion batteries and that type of thing. That's in the state law, and we have put that in your ordinance as well. Okay, so what happens? Well, now we have this law, it's effective in November. Projects are gonna come into our township possibly. What are our possible approaches to handling these projects? First of all, we can say, we don't want anything to do with this. We're totally opposed to all of it. You have to go through the state, because if this is gonna happen in our township, I don't want my name on it, go through the state. I represent a township in Van Buren County, well, you are in Van Buren County, somewhere else in Van Buren County. If you have watched the news, you might have seen that they had a solar project. It was a 2-township project. One township used their township attorney, went through everything, did it properly, amended their ordinance, approved the project, off they go. The other township, who shall remain nameless, didn't call me, didn't use me, adopted the zoning ordinance from this other township, it took it intact and adopted it, and it had all the wrong zoning districts in it. The names of the zoning districts were from this other township. So they said, we allow the zoning, we allow these projects, the solar projects in AG and LI, and they didn't exist in this township, okay, so the solar company says, well, we wanna, you know, we have half of our project is in your township, what are we gonna do? So I said, well, we're gonna amend the zoning rights to put the right names of the districts in here, let's do that. Well, guess what happened when we done that? Zoning ordinance referendum, put it to a vote. The vote to change the names of the zoning districts was turned down by the people, and the project is now halfway dead. Well, what happens then? We all know it, lawsuit, right? Big fat lawsuit. So we get through the lawsuit, we have to settle it out. The project is going forward. It could have huge implications on the vote next week for supervisor, et cetera, in this township. It could flip the whole board. This township at this point in time, and I don't know if a new board's elected, what they'll say, says we're done with all of this. If anyone wants to come to our township and do any of these projects, they can go through the state of Michigan. Now, any projects under those numbers, under 50 megawatts, under 100 megawatts, still go through your local township zoning. So we do need to have ordinances, even if you say, I don't care about these big projects, it can go to the state. I don't want to put my name on it. We still should have regulations and ordinances for the smaller projects under those numbers, okay? So keep that in mind. The state, and what we'll talk about in detail here, is the state has said, under this Public Act 233, you can have a compatible renewable energy ordinance. That's what CREO stands for, compatible renewable energy ordinance. But all you can have in your ordinance is exactly what we have in the state law. You cannot be more restrictive. You can only do what we said you can do and nothing more or nothing less. All right, so that's what a CREO is. That's what the state has said you can do. If you do that, we'll go through the flow chart, or you can do what most of my clients are now getting to the point of doing, is doing a workable ordinance, which means we're still gonna have our own ordinance. It's gonna be a little bit more restrictive than the state law. It's gonna be a little bit more restrictive than a CREO. But if the developer wants to come through us, save time and money for going through the state, they can come through us and we will have our own ordinance, and it will be hopefully doable enough that they'll come through us. But if not, they can always go through the state. So those are the three options. Go directly to the MPSC and deal with them. Develop a compatible renewable energy ordinance in which you can't be any more strict. So all those setbacks I just talked about, you have to match those in your ordinance. You can't be more restrictive. You can't ask for more. Or we think about doing a workable ordinance, which most of my clients at this point are now doing. All right, we'll go real quickly through the MPSC process. They go directly to the stage. They have all these types of things in their application, a site plan, expected public benefits, impact on the natural environment, public health, safety and welfare, et cetera. So it's a lengthy process. Here's what happens if they go to the state. 60 days before, well, first of all, they have to have a meeting with the chief elected official of each local unit of government. What this law does, crazily enough, insanely enough, is it defines an affected local unit of government, each municipality that the project will be located in. So what that means here is if you have a project in this township, it's in Columbia Township, it's in Van Buren County. We have two governments that have to cooperate if we're gonna do a CREO, if they're gonna go through us. So here, the state, under the MPSC, they have to, the applicant, the developer, whoever it is, has to offer to meet with the chief elected official in each local unit of government. We've spent a lot of time with the MPSC identifying who's a chief elected official in a township because, you know, it's not like there's a mayor or it's not like, you know, so we have worked with the MPSC to say that will be the township supervisor, okay? They would meet with the township supervisor. Then they have to hold a public meeting. It doesn't call it a public hearing. They just have to hold a public meeting in your jurisdiction. So at least 60 days before that, they have to meet with the elected official, here the supervisor. Then they have to notify the township clerk of when this meeting is gonna be and where it's gonna be, and provide a copy of the site plan. Then they have to publish a notice in the newspaper 14 days ahead, which all this is crazy because we know notices are 15 days ahead under the zoning enabling act, so everything's just a little bit off. Then they have to hold a public meeting in each jurisdiction, so that would be Columbia Township and Van Buren County. And when you say that to the MPSC, well, what does that mean? Are they holding, is one meeting in Columbia Township, does that cover the two meetings they need to hold? Nobody who wrote this law has any understanding about townships, cities, villages, counties, they have no concept, okay? So we've been working quite a bit with them in terms of guidelines and fleshing out how this is actually gonna work. They would have a public meeting after, there's no guide, so far, there's nothing that tells us what has to be done at that public meeting, what has to be said, do minutes have to be taken, do those minutes have to be given back to the MPSC? So we've been working on all that. If you have any interest and you have nothing else to do with your life, you can look at the MPSC. The guidelines, the draft guidelines were released at last third week in July. But they were released earlier. We had to have our comments in the third week of July, and they plan to release their final guidelines sometime in August or September. That will help flesh out this process. So then the person files an application with the MPSC. They must provide notice that they're doing that in the newspaper. And then the state has 60 days, to determine if the application is complete, and they have up to a year to make a decision. So the state gets a year to make a decision, all right? These are all the things that the Michigan Public Service Commission can consider. Are there other alternative locations? What's the impact on your local land use? What's the percentage of land in your township already dedicated to energy generation? Well, the township I represent that already has 9,000 acres going into solar. They're like, we don't want any more. We feel like we've done our part. We're really nervous that after all this, if this whole industry in 30 years goes boom or bust, and they're right by Marshall, Michigan, everything's gonna leapfrog over us and they're gonna go other places and we're gonna be left with just destroyed farmland and cannons. Okay, so we want the state of Michigan to consider that we already have a lot here. All right, public benefits of energy, consideration of environmental impact, community host agreement. This is the one thing the Michigan Township Association got in the law. They have to pay you if they go through the state, $2,000 a megawatt, one-time payment that goes to the township for, and it says it right in there, police, public safety, infrastructure, and there might be something else. We were very concerned, like some of these townships, are you gonna have the capacity for firefighting for some of these projects, solar or battery storage? Do we need different kinds of equipment? If we do, are we gonna be able to pay for it? Are we gonna be able to get the right kind of truck that has to go out there for solar project, a brush truck going out into the fields, all that type of stuff? So we were able to get this in. This is a standard practice in other states. It's not standard in Michigan. We got this in the law, and so that's really helpful, at least in some regard. Also, here's the one that a lot of townships focus at, will it unreasonably diminish prime farmland? So the MPSC, Michigan Public Service Commission, is going to consider some of these things. The other thing they have to do, if the applicant goes to the state of Michigan, they have to put up money in an intervenor fund up to $75,000 for each municipality, $150,000 maximum, deposited into a special fund for use by the municipalities. And in this case, it could be Columbia Township and Van Buren County, to intervene in the case in front of the Michigan Public Service Commission and say, intervene means, let me get into the case, all right? Let me in the case, so the applicant is gonna give you money to get into the case and fight them, all right? So they have to put up that money. They have to give you the money to come forward. Now, the MPSC gets to decide how much you get. And there's a very complicated formula that they're trying to come up with in their guidelines. But you would get some money to start, so you could then hire your township attorney or someone else to go in and appear on your behalf at the MPSC. And here's the community host agreement, $2,000, one-time payment per megawatt. Must be used for police, fire, public safety, infrastructure, and other projects if you consent, the applicant consents, etc. So that's all part of it. Now, that's the state process. If you say we don't want anything to do with it, they can just go to the state. Those are the things they're gonna do. You're gonna get some money to go in there and fight them, and you'll also get some money as a community host agreement. Now, if I wanted to instead have a compatible renewable energy ordinance, a CREO, you would adopt it, but it says it must be adopted by all affected local governments. So that means not only would our township have to adopt it, we'd have to get Van Buren County to adopt it, which is a challenge, okay? Because you all have your own zoning. Many of your townships, I think most of your townships, I don't think there's any county zoning in Van Buren County. But if you go over to Berry County, where I also represent a lot of townships, half the townships on the county zoning, half are under their own zone. So we have got to, if we want to do a compatible, and this is the biggest issue we've had with this statute, is you're telling me, and we know under law, if the township has its own zoning, no county zoning applies. If there is no township zoning and there's county zoning, then county zoning applies. We can't have both people have zoning on top of each other. So this has been very difficult. So we've been spending a lot of time talking about since November, how are we gonna do this? And one ordinance have to be a regulatory ordinance, the other a zoning. It's all we need to know is the MPSC is trying to work this out right now. We don't have to bust our brains trying to figure it out. It may be that they make an interpretation that only municipalities with zoning have to have a compatible renewable energy ordinance. But this is still in play, all right? The second point here is important though. Your township compatible renewable energy ordinance cannot be more restrictive on any of those items listed on those slides than what the state law says. You can't be more restrictive on setbacks. You can't be more restrictive on noise restrictions, height, all that stuff. You can only match what the state says. All right. And then it says here, all affected local governmental units have to have a CREO in order for any of them to use it. And it's extremely fast. You must act within 120 days. Remember I said the state got a year, we get 120 days. Okay, so if you see how this was written, it was to urge them to go through the state. And we're like, we gotta go. If we're gonna do it at all, we have very limited authority. We can only match what the state does, and we only have 120 days. All right, so my law partner just drafted a sample compatible renewable energy ordinance for the Michigan Townships Association, was released a week ago or maybe 10 days ago. I know this township is a member of MTA. You can get on there and look at it. But what we have found right now is that And this is just totally your township gets to decide how you're gonna pursue this. We let the state take it, we could go with a compatible renewable energy ordinance, which we can pull off the MTA website if we want to, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, or we're gonna try and do a workable. The sample compatible renewable energy ordinance released by MTA aligns as closely as possible to the statute. And further guidance from the MPSC is gonna come out, or through court cases, about things we can include. For instance, the compatible renewable energy ordinance is silent. The sections of the statute are silent on screening. Doesn't say we can do screening. It doesn't say we can have a decommissioning agreement. So what we're having, if you can imagine, arguments going amongst attorneys right now. Some attorneys are saying, well, if it doesn't say you can't do it, you can do it. Whereas the industry is saying, no, 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 you can only do exactly what it says in the law. So when we say this is unsettled area of law, it's extremely unsettled and it's moving very fast because whatever we're gonna do, we have to have ready by November, okay? So, all right, so the MPSC is releasing additional guidance and updated rules. There's been several meetings of public comment. As I said, I've been on it. You're gonna see me going like, what are you talking about to the industry attorney? And the attorney general from the state of Michigan. Well, we think you can do this. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. You know, they don't understand municipal law. They don't understand zoning authority. They don't understand the difference between a city, a village, a township, a county. There's a lot of things that are problems with this law that we're trying to work out. Currently, they're accepting public comment on their guidelines. I think that part, the public comment is over. They're now refining their guidelines and they're gonna produce them by sometime in August. So you can check the MPSC website. If you do a compatible renewable energy ordinance, it's almost the same type of process, except that you have to go much quicker, all right? So the developer would come to the chief elected official, if you're the township supervisor, he would say, we're gonna have a meeting in your municipality. They would put it in the newspaper 14 days ahead. But then the whole application goes through you at the township and somehow through Van Buren County at the same time, both of you, and you have 120 days to do it. There you go. I'm not sure that's even worth, thinking about. If you do a CREO, your township does a CREO, but you do any of these things, you get in trouble, okay? If you have a CREO and you tell them they have a CREO, they come to you, they say, hey, you want to do a project in your municipality, do you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance? And you say yes, and then you do any of these things, you get slapped on the hand. If you don't act within 120 days, you're going to be penalized. If you deny them for anything except in that one section of the law, okay, we can only have what's in that one section of the law, the setbacks, the height, the noise, etc. If you deny them for anything else, you're going to get in trouble. And if you tell them you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance, and after that you amend your ordinance to make it more restrictive, you will get in trouble. And what you'll get in trouble is your ordinance will be declared invalid for all this project and all future projects. They don't have to hold any public meetings in your municipality, and they do not have to give you the intervenor funds if they go to the state of Michigan. Okay, so if you think you're going to play games here, it does not seem like we'll be able to play games here. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, so here's where most of our clients are ending up. Called a workable ordinance. It's not a CREO. It's more restrictive than a compatible renewable energy ordinance. We know it's not a compatible renewable energy ordinance. So if a developer comes to us and says, do you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance? You say, no, but we have a workable ordinance. Okay, if you want to work with us, we have a workable ordinance. Developer would choose to go through this ordinance instead of going through the MPSC. It will save them time, it will save them money, okay? And for a lot of them, that's very important. I don't know if anyone's explained to you how this kind of works, and I'm a layman, so if you ask me a lot of technical questions, I won't be able to answer them. But the companies come in and they put an application in to put their power into the Midwestern grid, okay? It's called the MISO Q. And that approval can take 2 to 3 years. So while they're going about trying to get their project approved in your municipality and get the land, lease up people, all this kind of stuff, figure out your ordinances, they've made an application, or they probably have made an application to put the power they want to develop into the MISO queue. So they have a 2 to 3 year wait on that situation. So while they're trying to do all this, they're also trying to get approval to put in the MISO queue. And they might be trying to sell their power that they're gonna generate to somebody else. So either to Consumers Energy, to DTE, sometimes to other people, or they're DTE or consumers and they're gonna produce it themselves. So all this is going on in this framework. That's why we're beginning, and as we may know, the state passed, it was the Healthy Climate Plan. It became law a year ago, where certain percentages of our power have to be in renewables by certain time frames. And by 2030, it's some, I can't even remember.
60% by 35.
How much is it?
60% by 35.
60% of our power needs to be renewables by 2035.
That's 10 years.
So 10 years from now, 60% of our power is gonna be in renewables. I personally live 5 miles from the Palisades plant, okay? I thought this thing was dead and gone, okay? Closed down, all was sold off to a company that was gonna shut it down. I just read something like $100 and some million was just allocated to that plant to reopen it. Like, isn't that crazy? And it will do 800 megawatts, which is the same size of the project over by Outlet. 800 megawatts on solar, got no money from anybody, anywhere. Hundreds of millions of dollars going to open the defunct power. I mean, it's just kind of interesting. I mean, how the, priorities of the state are being implemented. That's my personal opinion. Don't hold it against my firm. Don't hold it against something. It's my personal opinion. Okay, I'm just looking at that. So, so if we go with a workable ordinance, the developer would come to you, you would say, no, I do not have a Creo, but I have this ordinance. You might want to take a look at it. Why would they choose this route? It's a faster process, better value, more community support. Developers might be wary of this option, but since we did this presentation in April, every single project I've done so far wants to go through the township, and they want to work in the ordinance. Probably 15 in the last, since April, okay? And they want to do it now,
Do
okay?
you have an idea why?
I don't know, other than the fact that there's extreme urgency. Everybody is very, very, wants to get this done as soon as possible. So in some sense, given this whole framework, you have to think about strategically in your township. What approach do we want to take? Do we want to say, we don't like any of this, you need to go to the state, so our names are not on it? Do you want to say, we want to do a compatible renewable energy ordinance, which is extremely limited? The state has really tied our hands. We have no authority to do what we think is protecting public health, safety, and welfare. We're just kind of a rubber stamp, okay? Or do you want to try to develop a workable ordinance, which we don't know how much more restrictive we can be. We have to hit the sweet spot at which the developer will choose to go through us. We'll get a little bit more than we would through the state, and we get a little bit more control. So, all I can say is in my last few months, every single person we've dealt with wants to go through working for whatever that's worth, okay? That's anecdotal. All right, so what you need to do is consult with your attorney and or if you have a consulting planner like Tasha. These are complicated issues and not everyone agrees on interpretation. We have a lot of different attorneys saying a lot of different things. So I know you have a different lead attorney in this township. From what we say, do you really need to kind of just talk about first, what is our approach that we want to take? Do we want to take a workable ordinance? If we do, then we can talk about what you have on the public hearing tonight. We can talk about changing things in that. Or if your township, wants to just say, we're not going to do any of it, you still need to have an ordinance for the project smaller than those benchmarks, okay? And then if you want to say we're just gonna stay with a compatible renewable energy ordinance, then you can just boot off and go to the MTA website and pull that down and use that as your guide. Talk to your neighboring governments and county. I have no idea if Van Buren County is doing anything, but I think that distinction is going to be cleared up on the MPSC when they release their rules. Keep the timelines for adoption of these ordinances in mind. We have to have public hearings at the planning commission like you're doing tonight. We have to have noticing and all the other stuff. Okay, so We still have some local zoning authority. We can regulate the smaller projects like I've been talking about. We can regulate roof mounted or ground mounted solar systems as accessory uses, and we can always do the workable ordinance. Okay, real quickly, there's a statute that was adopted last summer. If you get a big solar project, they have the ability to ask for a PILT, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. It's voluntary for the township. The township doesn't have to do it. But the big project over in the township over by Olivet, it's an 809 megawatt project. They've asked for PILT. They will have to pay $7,000 a megawatt a year for the life of the project. You see, they're 20 or 30 years, I forget which, versus start real high on the value of the panels as personal property and then decrease, or you go 7,000 a year, 7,000 a year, 7,000 a year, 7,000 a year for whole. All you need to know is this is an option if you have a solar project. There is no companion legislation so far for battery storage or wind, but this is out, it's out there, so you just need to kind of be aware of it. All right, that's all I have. The questions remaining, you know, what can be included in a CREO? I think most people are not gonna fool around with that anymore. If they want to do a workable, they're gonna go to a workable. What level of collaboration between our local units of government? You know, if I have a project in 2 townships and 2 counties, which I have over in, over east of Valley Creek, my township's in Berry County, they're under county zoning. The township next door is in Calhoun County, and they're under their own zoning. So I've got 4 different players in there, right? How do I coordinate all those players? What level of coordination do we have to do? How will the state handle these issues? The state is, I don't really have much to say good about the state, except that I can see that the MPSC staff has worked really, really hard to get people on this, and we've been privileged to be part of that. And what different rules will they implement? They'll have their rules out by September. So we will have that, we'll know that. Talk to your attorneys. MTA, Michigan Township Association, is seeking clarifications from the MPSC. I have a meeting tomorrow with MTA about this. And so you may have developers coming in now, they may be looking for your ordinance, they may be saying to you, how soon can we get this done? We really want to do this, we want to do this now. A lot of developers will give you an ordinance, just understand, you know, there's no free lunch, I just understand that. You know, you can talk to us, you can talk to your lead attorney on ordinances, you can look at MTA, just keep in mind, you have 3 options. Either we completely punt to the state, we do a compatible renewable energy ordinance, which is very restrictive, or we try to do something workable that we think we can possibly live with. And then you have to explain that to all the people in your township who say we don't want it at all, right? This is the framework we're operating in. So, you know, either we decide we're going to try to do something that's a workable ordinance that we think will be as protective as we can get out of it, or we just let the state take it and have very little say in it. So that's the presentation. Thank you for the technical help very much.
Thank you.
And I'm
Catherine.
here to answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, we can do that. We're gonna do that during the public hearing part.
Okay.
Catherine's gonna walk through the text and
Okay.
we can answer questions
Okay.
there. Okay.
No, that's not.
Oh,
No, they can do questions.
They can do questions now because of public hearing. Sorry, my bad. I think, Bev, you had your hand up first, then we'll go to you.
So I'm trying to figure out why the company would not want to go to the state. Or why the state wants you to push it to the state instead of going to the company.
Well, it was, you know, I think the state, I think the whole basis of this legislation was there's too many people who are blocking these projects, and we have this very aggressive timeline under the state law to get 60% renewables by 2035, and these 2 things don't go together. I had all these townships saying, no, this isn't gonna happen in my township, I'm not gonna do this, you know, or adopting ordinances which are really restrictive. The state knew they weren't gonna hit their goals, so they flipped the approval process on it. It's a preemption of local zoning, right? They took it away from us because you aren't doing what you should be doing, so we're gonna take it away from you, right? I'm gonna take your toy away from you. And they then pushed it so that we would either have no control, or we'd have this really, really limited, almost like a sham control under a compatible renewable energy ordinance. It's like, okay, you can go do this if you're a good little boy and girl, but you have 120 days to do it, and you have to do exactly as we tell you. All right, those are your 2 options. So what is emerging sort of across the state, is this third option, which is nobody's blessed it, nobody said you can do it, but people are just doing it, okay? And the developers are coming through, they generally are okay, like, and we'll see when we go through your draft ordinance. They're generally okay, the one thing they might, really fight on is, you know, sometimes the setbacks, if we start taking setbacks internal on parcels where they lose a lot of their property, so they can't develop the project, that could be a problem. I have some townships that are wanting to do overlay districts and restrict where in the township these types of projects could go. I have some townships that want to limit the percentage of the land in the township, like if no more than 2% of my gross acreage in my township could go into this type of thing. I don't know, you know, I have no idea how a court will respond to those limitations. I have no idea if a developer will want to live within those limitations. So when we talk about the workable ordinance, we're trying to hit the sweet spot where projects can be developed, but we still feel we have enough control over them that we can say to the people who elect us or appoint us to the planning commission, we have done our best to protect public health, safety, and welfare in this regulatory framework, okay? So all I know is that they want to. I'm not exactly sure, you know, maybe when you have the developer here for the project, you could ask them, you know, what are your thoughts on this? What are you thinking? Is this something you would want to do here? Or do you just want to just, because in November, if you wait 4 more months, you can just go to state ambulance, right? Yes. Yes,
I'd like
sir.
to take off Kurt Doro. I'm actually the county commissioner in Port Columbia. 2 questions. The one, looking in this ordinance, it's talking about the decommissioning plan.
Mhm.
We had, you gave us a presentation a while back. You had mentioned that there weren't any rules that the state was pushing at it. Did that change?
Scrap value.
Oh, I can answer that now. So, the state has said in its Public Act 233, the very limited things we can put in a compatible renewable energy ordinance, and doesn't include anything about decommissioning. So what we're doing in our workable ordinance is we're putting them in there. You have to give us a decommissioning plan, we have to give us a decommissioning agreement. And we generally don't want to take salvage value. We can talk about that in more detail. I'm not sure how applicable that is to the battery storage, but in the solar or the wind, the applicants want you to, if the cost of decommissioning, which you generally have a third-party engineer calculate, how much is it going to cost me to take all these panels out of the ground, take them away, dispose of them, you know, and then in 2024, that's gonna be $4 million. We will look at that every 2 or 3 to 5 years so that we make sure we keep the amount of money that we're holding matching what the cost is gonna be. So if it goes
That
up,
will become enforceable then.
right. But what happens is, if we do our own ordinance, it'll be in our ordinance. If you go with the compatible renewable energy ordinance, we may not have the ability to put that in there. And we don't want to take, the other thing is they want you to discount salvage value. So if they feel you could salvage the panels, and, you know, get $1 million, then we should only have to post 3 million instead of, okay?
Use concrete, we don't get much for it.
No, this is different. I've been working mostly on solar, so this is a different type of thing. You know, I don't really have the answers on what salvaging or cleaning up a battery thing would be. It's a much more compact project. There's not as much to it. So in essence, it's almost easier, all right, but not necessarily so because we have to think of the fire risks and the other things that are going.
Fire risk. One of the questions that has come out with these battery storage areas, you can't go out there and fight that with water.
That's right.
It's battery.
Right, this water makes the fire.
Right.
Right, you can't go out there and use the normal foam that most of our fire departments have. So getting funds through the state, and you can use it for fire, whatever. So how much is it gonna cost?
Well,
Do you have to have a special truck for this foam? or,
well,
you know?
these are all good questions, which is why in our workable ordinance, we put in, you know, the state says you have to give us $2,000 a megawatt. I want 2,500. Okay, if you want to go through me, you want trouble going through me, you want me to handle all this, 2,500. It could be. I'm just trying to find the number. I'm trying to find the number that will make it a go. Okay. But you're right, because what we have to figure out, we have to consult with our fire departments, and they have to get educated on their side of it to tell us what we need, right? Because what they're generally saying is, you know, stand back, let them burn away. I mean, I've got somebody possibly within 300 feet of this to the wall of their dwelling unit. And you're telling me, stand back, let it burn away. Like my solar project in Lee Township in Calhoun, I've got people that are completely surrounded on three sides with thousands of acres of panels. And they say to me, the company, tell them stand back, tell the fire department, just keep everyone back. We'll handle it. Well, I've got a person whose house is surrounded on three sides by thousands of acres of panels. Am I supposed to tell that person, we're not gonna come fight this fire around your house? I mean, what are we doing? Okay? So I think it's really important that we get the fire people involved now. And one thing they require is NFPA 855. That's in the state law. We put it in our ordinance as well. But yeah, how are we gonna fight this fire? What do we need to fight this fire? Well, $2,500 a megawatt, one-time payment. Okay, will that help me? Will it be enough? If I do go through a special use approval, generally I can say, you know, one of the criteria might be, do you have adequate public facilities to support this use or something that won't be injurious or something? We need to look at that and see if there's some restriction in there where we can get more out of the project to make sure that we have adequate response. But if a project is submitted to this township and we have a workable ordinance, somebody's got to get the fire chief to give me a written, it's got to be in writing. Okay, I have to have a written report to this planning commission, so it's in the record about what he or she needs to handle that proposed project. Okay, so they can use their authority under law, which they will have, if they go with workable, to get those types of conditions met. That makes sense. Mhm. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Is there a pending application, to build such a gathering facility that's 24th and 50th?
I'm gonna let Tasha answer that.
We have an app, yes.
Yeah.
No,
Nobody knows about that.
so I'll take that back. We have an application to amend the zoning ordinance to then go forth with the site plan review of the facility. So their application was to amend the ordinance to allow it, which is what we're working on tonight, to have the ordinance. And then we would then go have the site plan and go through the ordinance, unless the township decides to just have them go through the state. That's why we're,
The thing is that there is no, regardless of what the process is, from through the township or the state, I mean, the state has given the authority to insert our local zoning ordinance,
Yes.
okay? So that any power company can come in here, pick a site, and if they qualify, they satisfy those requirements we had initially, it's a done project.
Yes.
We have no alternative. In other words, saying no is not an alternative.
No, that's correct. No, it's not an alternative. So the only thing we're trying to do is, do we come up with some mid-range ordinance here where we can maybe get a little more control, we can get a decommissioning agreement, we can get a community host agreement, can require screening, we have noise ordinance standards on it that might be slightly more restrictive than the state, that would make it, they would choose to come to us, even though we're slightly more restrictive, or do we just say, bag it all, right? And let them go to the state. And remember, there's still projects that are coming, that could possibly come in under those number ranges. We just had one in one of my townships, Sheridan Township, has 5 projects already, and somebody just came in with a 40 megawatt project, which is nothing compared to 200, 400, 100, so we're like, 40, what's this one thing? You know, so we still need an ordinance to cover anything that's under those numbers. Over those numbers and up, they can go to the state. Under those numbers, they would still have to come in.
So that plan facility, how many megawatts?
200,
200.
it's fairly big.
So do we get an ongoing incentive to do this? I mean, yeah, there's one time payment. What's the ongoing?
The only ongoing would be the taxes. Okay. So I mean, I can't answer, you know, I can't make that case for them, you know, it is what it is.
And they take into account like on that and that's right on the river too. That property is right on the river.
So he's asking about the project that would be right on the river. If they go to the state is supposed to consider impacts on natural environment, that type of thing. If they come here, you know, we could also put into our ordinance that kind of an impact. I've got to tell you that the way the state is going, I can't tell, I don't know what's gonna happen. I can't tell you what will happen, okay? If we understand the push behind this and the whole way this was taken, you know, there's very few things that are taken away from local government control. You know, adult foster care, childcare homes, 6 and under, 7, we cannot prohibit those. Prisons, state prisons, we can't prohibit where they go. Public schools, we can't prohibit through zoning where they go. So every time there's some, if the state preempts and says, we're gonna take this back, because of whatever reason it is. In this particular case, it's, we are not getting enough of our renewables into play as fast as we need them. So we're taking that right away from you to control it. You're not gonna block it anymore. And we'll just take care of it because you're not. So how they actually apply that, I can't tell you how it will be applied. Now, remember, if we go through the state, if the applicant goes to the state of Michigan, we will get intervenor funds, the township will get money that they can use to pay someone, township attorney or someone else to go intervene, say, I want into this case in front of the MPSC. I want to be a party in this case, and I'm coming in and I'm going to say, I oppose it because of X, Y, and Z. It's gonna take up too much prime farmland. Look at my master plan. This is all prime farmland and you're taking too much. Or if this is gonna affect the river, we don't have an adequate setback from the river. We have, you know, natural features here. It needs to go somewhere else on this property or be pushed all over here. And we need to put extra type of containment or something along here to protect this river. So if it goes to the state, we will get to go in and intervene if you choose to do so. What that means, if it's effective, I have no idea at this point in time to say how that would play. I just don't know.
Another thing on the fires that you were talking about. What I've seen is they just let it burn. They can't control it. So, and you talk about the house next door, they evacuated it.
I,
So what's gonna happen to all the people that live around there? They're gonna evacuate them, what are we gonna do?
I have no answers for that. I don't have any answers.
There's no putting them out, they let it burn.
So
So all that contamination is in the air.
I understand. I
And everything they
understand.
spray on it is, where that's at, is gonna go in the river.
I understand. So this is, you know, your township board may say to itself, your planning commission may recommend. Just let it go to the state because I don't want my name on this. Okay, does that make sense? I mean, we're in between a rock and a hard place here, if you understand really that. We're in a very difficult situation.
You just let it go to the state.
Well, I
You got
know,
you got no recourse later because you just said, okay.
right.
So, but if you say no, then you got a recourse later on if something changes.
Well, if we didn't, first of all, if we deny something, I can't see us surviving a successful challenge. If we adopt a workable ordinance and somebody meets it, we're
No, as
probably,
it
Even if
stands,
it's
there's-
environmentally sensitive area.
well, remember, the state has basically said they will consider these things, but they've said in a Creo, we can only consider these things. Setback, height, norms, etc. Okay? We at the state consider all these things. And no one knows how they're gonna consider them, what weight they'll give to them, how they will be considered. How will that all be dealt with? But what they've said to us is, you can consider these things, okay? So we have to decide, all that being said. Do you wanna do our own ordinance? Do you not? You know, and as we move through the last 3 months of discussion with the NPSC, they have broadened what they believe the townships can do or consider. So they're giving us more authority. But all that means is if they give us more authority under their guidelines, they're not making formal rules to the administrative rulemaking process because there's not time. So all that means to all of you is if they give us more authority and we deny an applicant, there's no way somebody's gonna get sued, okay? Somebody's getting sued. All right, and the MDC doesn't want it to be bad, okay? So they're broadening their rules, they're easing up on what the law actually says. They're gonna give more authority to the townships, and we'll see that in August or September, exactly what they're giving us. But if I'm a developer and I don't like what comes out of that, all I have to do is sue and say, you went too broad, the law says this, and you gave them all this. And they denied me and I should be removed. I mean, this is gonna be marijuana, okay? It's gonna take years to shake out, essentially, in my humble opinion. Okay?
Captain, I think one of the things that a lot of people are asking you, of course, you're not gonna know.
Right.
Because the state always changes things as they go.
I
You
think
can,
that's fair.
they can have a discussion and say, this is what we're gonna do today, and tomorrow can be changed.
Yes, and I think,
I think that, from what I'm hearing here and seeing, and what you have, been working with other townships, it sounds to me like the viable thing for us to consider would be a workable, ordinance, because then we, at least we have some kind of,
Control.
You
Input.
have some type
maybe
of
some
input on it.
authority
Yeah.
to have some
I think-
leeway.
I think most of my clients right now are thinking the same thing. The only question is exactly what they will put in and how
Right,
much will be, right, so.
If you even do the workable, it still comes down to the state says yes or no anyway.
Well,
Does
if
it
we do the
not?
workable, they can come through us. That you have a good point, though. If, let's say we do a workable, we're going through the process and all of a sudden they don't like us anymore. They can pull out and go to the state.
Right,
Right.
so it doesn't matter.
So we have a workable ordinance and
Get that? I'm sorry.
what if,
What they need to do is sue the state to get all the townships.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that won't take much time.
Well,
Be built by
Can't do
then.
that if you agree to it, you know.
yes.
So if we have a work,
But I'm saying we can't assume if you agreed to the policy.
if we have a workable ordinance and they start a project under that ordinance, do they still have the legal authority to pull out at any
Yes.
time and say,
Yes, they do.
screw you guys, we changed our mind, now we're gonna do this?
They do.
So
That would slow down their process quite a bit, though.
if we have a workable ordinance, are we, should that law get overturned on the ballot in 2026? That's a that's a good possibility. That's plenty of time to get those signatures. Should that law get overturned, where do we stand if we wrote our own ordinance that was a workable ordinance? Even though we're forced to do it even under duress? What happens with the projects we have? Then can we
Those,
regulate them stronger?
if those projects are already in place, they would effectively, if we changed our ordinance, become non-conforming. We have that, remember I talked about
Big
PA
grandfather?
234 said we can't, unless we got that thing removed, says we can't change it, revoke it, etc. So it gives them non-conforming vested, quote unquote, vested rights. So you have to change that as well as Public Act 233, and I only saw signatures for 233 and Sandy signatures for 234.
Oh.
So, you know, what that Public Act 234 did is give any project approved after January 2021 vested rights, and you cannot change it if they have spent either 10% of the project cost for $10,000, all right? So keep in mind, essentially, we've kind of been cut off at the knees. We're trying to do the best we can with what we have at this moment in time. The MPSC is developing these guidelines that are they've been changing since we've been really working on it since January. They've been changing over those months. They are coming more and more in favor of the municipalities, but of course, the industry gets to put their comments in too, and then MPSC considers all of them. And we just had a turn in final comments. It was, I think, a Wednesday, it was on a Wednesday, it was either a week ago or 10 days ago, I can't remember. And they will come out with their final guidelines sometime, I think, in August or September. So, yes, sir.
Can you give me an example of a corporation like, an energy corporation that would want to install a battery storage system in the township or anywhere? And then give me the name of a corporation that.
Well, I don't know the one that's here.
Consumer?
Can we
Vesper,
tell them?
Vesper Energy.
Vesper, how big is that?
I don't know anything about Vesper Energy.
Do these companies really want to force themselves in the town?
Yes.
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 There's millions and millions
they
and
don't
billions
care.
of dollars to be made.
Because it's such a point of view.
Put on by Hutchins.
So you don't care.
There's a point to.
You will get more traction out of. But if you understand how everybody is trying to,
So,
the numbers are.
I can do it if you want.
60% by this year.
oh, you can go
Everybody's
as
coming to
representative.
the state. Either they're DTE or consumers or there are other companies that are gonna sell their power or, you know, store the power and sell it and put it in the grid. Yes, I don't,
They told us they're gonna sell it on auction to the grid, highest bidder.
Yeah.
Understand how this is. Reuse or the energy, storing in a battery is not. It's not the green energy, the panels
So-
are, and the wind turbine is, but the storage is not.
so the grid cannot take at one time all the energy that's being produced. So when we first saw these battery storage as part of a larger project, part of the wind project, part of the solar project, so that the the energy produced goes there, and when there's a ability to release it into the grid, it would- and this is the most basic I can explain. Put it into the grid. Now we're seeing battery storage projects just on their own, because the grid cannot take everything at one time and get it
I think
done.
it's because they're setting it up at lower rates and turn around selling it between 2 and 7 at the higher rates.
I
Yes.
can't, I don't know anything about that.
That too.
If I'm wrong, this, my understanding is that the way these companies make money is that they buy electricity at nighttime. All right, and they sell it back to the grid at a higher price.
Excuse me, I'm gonna make a recommendation. I'm just gonna make a quick recommendation. We are also coordinating 2 open houses to have VESPA representatives and engineers and subject matter experts here to ask those questions. I feel like we're kind of drifting a little bit into questions that Catherine's not gonna know, we're not gonna know. They're great questions, believe me, but how they make money and all that, how the grid technically works, we're not gonna be able to answer.
Big suggestion that you get these local state representatives and senators involved. In those types of meetings. In other words, the.
Yeah. They can hear.
Great suggestion.
That is good, yeah. We will be having, though, there will be open houses with the representatives here and you can ask questions directly of them. So we encourage everybody to come and ask
I
questions.
just have a follow-up question, but I think what she was hitting on. There is a chance that 233 could be on the ballot in 2026. So I think what she was asking was, if we have a workable ordinance to get this place green light, you hit this workable ordinance, then that thing hits the ballot in 26 and that law is repealed. Are we gonna have to follow through and have that in our township where
Yes.
we really don't
Yes.
want it?
Yes, you are going to have to.
So would it be wise to kick the can, go to the state?
Well, that's a policy decision that is for, you know, ultimately, the planning commission can make a recommendation, ultimately your township board can decide that.
I understand, but in your opinion, would it be wise to?
I really, you know what, I can't say because that's policy. I can tell you what the laws, I think there's different, like I told you about the township somewhere else in Van Buren County. They're just not willing to put their heads in the chopping block again for this. So I think, you know, this is a policy decision and I really can't say what's best for each municipality. I mean, I honestly, if somebody's at a push right now to get a project approved and because of pending, you know, that's not gonna go on until 2026 or whatever, and they get their project approved, there is no way they're not gonna vest their rights before 2026. They're gonna build roads, they're gonna put up a accessory structure, they're gonna do something to vest, in my personal opinion, of course, it doesn't mean it would all anything that would happen. But when you vest your rights under law, it means I do something to put shovel and ground, building permit and shovel and ground is the very basic framework in Michigan that vests my rights, and then I have the right to continue my project under the prior approval, even if the law changes.
And you're saying they would do that if the state, like if they went through the state would approve it.
Well,
And then-
they're saying if somehow they came through us or through the state or whatever, they
Right.
got approved, but we got this law reversed in 2026.
There, yeah.
Would we still have to let them build? That's
Yes.
the question, I think. And the
Correct.
question is probably if they vested their rights, yes. But I. think,
Unless
you know,
the other one's
a lot of-
repealed also.
Right.
Okay,
When there's such an ordinance like this has to be passed in order to become effective.
Soon. So, and we'll talk about this.
Yeah.
We'll
talk about it.
Could I speak to that?
Yeah.
I think this probably a good opportunity to add some context to everything that Catherine's already shared. Because it might inform some of the public comments that you guys came and prepared for tonight, which is great. So first, I want to thank Catherine
Yeah.
for coming in. I think you would all agree we have the right person for the job. She's super knowledgeable. All her work with the MTA is incredibly valuable. That's why we wanted to get her involved right away. So thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everybody, for coming, because this is a big deal. There's a lot of moving parts. And as Catherine already said, it's moving very fast. So informed citizens are empowered citizens. So we try to give every opportunity to get everybody involved in this. I just want to real quickly speak on behalf of the board. I'm also on the township board, and so I'm the representative to the planning commission. And just to give you kind of an idea what our mindset is. Nothing has been adopted on the board level. We are simply kind of on a fast track exploratory mission to learn as much as we can and hear about as many options as possible. Because once the energy company came to us with this proposal, and then we quickly learned that it was already passed in the state, and there would come a time where the window would close where we wouldn't have a choice anyways. We thought the most prudent path forward is to try to learn what all our options are and then play our best hand. Because candidly, these are my words again, and I'm not speaking for the whole board, but as you heard Catherine say, you have one option here is the state. That's like castor oil with ghost pepper sauce. You have this option, it's like castor oil with vinegar. And then there might be an option where we have castor oil with a little bit of honey in it to make the whole thing taste just a tiny bit better. But one way or another, we're getting castor oil. And so we're trying to consider all these things, and we are, at the directive of the board, the planning commission is trying to pursue the idea of a workable ordinance. It appears at this point that the energy company Vesper is willing to work with us on that. They could have easily not come in and just went, hey, I'll just wait till November. So again, we can't speak to why that incentive is, but I think it's because it's a little bit easier track for them if they can get the community at least somewhat on board, and they don't have to go through all the red tape at the state level because we've adopted the ordinances ahead of time. But whether that's here or there, the board is pursuing the option of a workable ordinance to see what our options are. It has to move very quickly. As Catherine said, there are some incentives to that. The biggest one is that we at least get to set some of our ordinances at a higher level than they would be at the state or through a CREO. So that's obviously the best choice there, is to try to have some control over our ordinances. There's also some prospective financial incentives. I think somebody said, do we get paid for doing this? We're investigating some of those ideas. I think Catherine mentioned the one-time payment. There's also some potential grant money out there that if a township adopts ordinances ahead of certain dates, we can apply for grants through Eagle, I think it is, which is another, I believe it's, Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, possibly $5,000 per megawatt.
To do
For a grant.
I thought it was just $10,000 total.
No, it's 5,000 per megawatt.
Oh,
So again, this is a 2,000 or 200 megawatt facility. So there's a possibility that if we are able to implement some workable ordinances as a township, we could also apply for an Eagle grant at $5,000 per megawatt, which would be $1 million. So there could be another $1 million influx that could go to offset whatever impacts this may have. So I just want to clearly state that the board has not decided that this is the right move. We're just trying to cover our bases and I guess walk and chew gum as best we can at the same time, because in November, we don't get to decide anymore. So if we can move the ball down the field and at least have ordinances in place that are the best we can possibly create, it puts us in at least a little bit better position than just kind of waiting to see. But there's no, we're keeping every off ramp open. Like, we're not just cruising down the highway saying this is the way to go. We're trying to consider every exit ramp possible. And with Catherine's work and her expertise, we believe that we're going to arrive at that conclusion. So the process looks like this. You have the text amendment. We have to have a public hearing for that. You're all here to comment on that. Looking forward to hearing your comments. Love to know what you think. Then this planning commission has to approve that.
No, recommend.
Well, sorry, I used the wrong word. It's recommend. We don't approve this project at all. We recommend to the township board that we think it should be approved. Then it has to go to the county. They have 30-day review period. Then it comes back to the township board. Then the township board has to vote on it. And all that has to happen in pretty like consecutive order in order for us to hit all these timelines to enact this before the November. That's right, that's right. We have to do this and then go back to the energy company and they have to submit a site plan for review based on our new ordinances if we adopt them. So it's very, very like, there's no room for error in terms of timing. So again, we're just trying to do our best at walking and chewing gum at the same time. So the more people you can get informed about this, the better. It will eventually come to your township board to decide to adopt or not adopt these ordinances, or to kick it to the state, or to say, we want nothing to do with this. So we'll need to hear from you. We're just trying to put ourselves in a position where we can go whichever way is best in everybody's opinion. So. That
And
makes
do we
sense?
have dates for the open houses yet? I know you were.
Yes, there are 2 dates on the calendar for open houses for the energy companies going to come in. I think you may have seen one in the South Haven Tribune. August 7th from 5:30 to 7 is the first one. And then August 28th from 7 to 8:30. We did one in an earlier slot, one in a later slot.
28 is what?
7 to 8:30. I would encourage everybody to do as much research as you possibly can between now and one of those open houses, and bring your questions with you. And if we need to have more, we'll try to coordinate more. But we wanted to get, obviously, this on the books, get Catherine in here to speak about the law itself so that everybody understands what our choices are and aren't. But then all the questions about how do you put these fires out and what does a decommissioning plan look like? Bring those to those open houses, because they'll have energy company reps to answer those questions. So.
But with that, you're saying they're gonna answer these questions, but they don't have to abide by what they answer, do they? That's what you just said.
Technically, they don't, but would you rather just say,
They can still do whatever they want.
Well, they can go to the state and get approval from the state.
Right.
You know, whether they, you know, that would be a question you could ask. If we had to work with an ordinance, would you rather work through us? You know,
Right.
That's the first question I would ask.
Right, but if you agree with them and they agree with you, and then they don't do it, there's no repercussion. You said that earlier.
Well, I'm talking about, so yeah, we're talking about the site plan and the special use. So normally under a special use, you can put conditions on them and that type of thing. It does hamper us a little bit. We'll just have to do the best we can. You know, under a normal special use approval, we can revoke it if they're not doing what they're supposed to do. We can pull back their approval. That's different right now in Public Act 234. So yeah, you're right. It's not a perfect world. As you said, it's castor oil anyway. We, you know, do it. Is there just one better than the other? It's not great options.
This has to be done by November.
Well, I recommend you get something done by November if you want them to come through you. Now, of course, I fully expect over half of my clients will have nothing done by November. And then everybody's pants will go on fire and I'll never have night off again. But, that, you know, if somebody's coming to you and they have a project in the works and you don't have anything ready by November, you know, you could say, are you willing to wait for us? Here's what our timeline is, here's what we're doing, and they would make a business decision whether to wait or not.
What were you guys shooting for, Jason?
well, just so everybody knows, this will come before, according to our current timeline with the milestones we have to hit. This will come before the township board for approval or rejection during the September meeting, which the board meets the third Tuesday of the month. So that is, Karen, you probably know that date.
I'm sorry. I was,
Third Tuesday.
September 17th.
17th. So we pretty much, in order to hit the timelines we would need to hit, we would have to approve that at the September 17th meeting.
And approve the special land use by September 30th.
Right.
You got the 30 days for the county in there too?
Yeah,
Okay.
so September 3rd. September 30th is the deadline to apply for the grants.
to September third for the special land use approval.
The thirtieth.
Oh, the
So
third.
so the text needs to be adopted fully in effect, and then we also have to approve the site
Site
plan,
plan.
That's not gonna happen.
which is a special land use, public hearing, and then it has to then go to the board.
Can you apply next year for a grant?
I don't think so.
I did have the Eagle actually send me some information about some of the ins and outs of what applying, what needs to be done for the
Get the
deadline.
application in.
Like, does their site plan have to be fully adopted or
Okay.
something? I
What kind of restrictions are on that grant money that you're talking about?
We're just digging into all this. I don't think we know all the details yet.
You don't know what the restrictions are.
Oh, as far as how it's spent, I don't know that, but we're digging through the application as we speak, so. Come back again next meeting, we'll we might have that answer for you. I mean, and again, I don't want to imply that we're chasing this solely for grant money. That's not the issue. I don't think anybody thinks this is a great idea.
Because if there's a lot of restrictions, then.
Right,
Right, right. It might not be worth it.
right.
What are the two August dates again?
August 7th, from 5:30 to 7. And August 28th from 7 to 8:30.
They're both Wednesdays.
They'll be here.
Just so you know, I'm on the county planning commission also, we have a meeting Wednesday night, and then our next one will be the 28th, so
Hmm.
sure you guys can get it to us after that. So.
Yes, I have to have it to them about 10 days before the meeting.
Yep.
The agenda.
Yep, that is our milestone, right? Yep.
And just one thing I noticed, this is time or not, on page 4, is it supposed to say Kelvin County Register?
Yeah.
No, that's,
No,
sorry.
there'll be some changes in the text. Yeah.
Picking up for vendor.
Yeah,
As you should.
yeah.
This is just
Okay.
a template from, so.
So we probably should open our public hearing so that we can go through the text, if that's okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm gonna, what time exactly is it?
8:29.
8:29. I'm gonna open the public hearing at 8:29. This is a public hearing for the text amendment for battery storage systems. And we do have, everybody has that draft, and Catherine has agreed to go through that text with us
All right.
and explain.
So
So
this is
thank you.
just a very simplistic template that we have developed in our firm for our clients. Some people elevate it, some people use it the way it is. So again, I apologize if it says Calhoun in here, but that's, you pay for this. Somebody in Calhoun County paid for this and you get it. Okay? So, we do, the definitions are just to define, and this is just battery. Obviously, after this, we're gonna have to do solar. But let's work on this first. Battery definition, battery energy storage. And then on-site is if you are using battery storage for yourself on your own property. So it's just kind of an accessory type of use, and there's very few regulations at the end of this ordinance about that, all right? So if somebody was gonna want battery storage on their property for their own use, maybe to support their business or something like that, that might be on site. Then we define a small offsite and a large offsite based on the 50 megawatts or larger or smaller. Non-participating property is a property that's adjacent but is not part of the system, and participating property, somebody who's getting payment of monetary compensation or some other type of compensation to be part of the project. Then we just go to all the regulations about off-site battery storage, which is a standalone project, all right? And these are just, we don't have to follow these, it's just a suggestion. Do you have a minimum parcel size? One of the townships I'm working with doesn't want to have a minimum size. There's a let go on any property. I put 5 acres in here, that's just a starting point. You don't have to have a minimum size, you can have a minimum size. It's just a starting point. The next one I have, and I don't know what, I don't know what your zoning districts are here, I just put agricultural. Or some people, some people want to specifically call this out here. You don't have to, but some people say it shall not unreasonably diminish farmland, including prime farmland. So I have a lot of townships that are very concerned about all of their farmland turning over into solar or battery storage.
Right.
We have this here as just kind of a statement. You can strike it, you can leave it, whatever you want. If there's something else you want to put in here about site selection, if you want to put something about, you know, it should not be injurious to natural features such as rivers, lakes, streams. I mean, we can put stuff in here. This is just a very basic starting point. I have it, you know, small offsite, which is under 50 megawatts would be allowed as a special land use in this zoning district. You fill in your zoning districts. I don't know how, if you have any in industrial here or not. Okay, so that's why I didn't put anything down. A lot of places we're allowing them to go in industrial. But when you get to the setbacks, these are just what the state law is, okay? So we can be more restrictive than state law. This is 300 feet from the nearest point on the outer wall to an occupied community building, 50 feet to the road. You can be more restrictive. You probably want to be more restrictive. I just had a township last week that wants to go to 500 feet. I'm not sure what 500 feet. And then they wanted to put it to a property line. I think that's fairly aggressive, because the battery storage, you saw that they're gonna be panels, they're gonna be in containers, they're gonna be on some type of either a paved surface or a gravel surface. I was talking to somebody the other day that's putting one right in the middle of, it was either Three Rivers or Sturgis. They only got a 25-foot setback all around, they're screening it. It's in an industrial area. The danger is the fire, you know, but they're in an industrial area where there's a lot of similar type of situations. So you know, this is just what the state law allows. I think if you're gonna do a workable, you would go more on a setback, but then we have to talk about what would be, what's appropriate.
Parcel
Okay.
size.
Well, first of all, if they wanna,
Yeah.
you guys, you know, I'll walk, if you wanna ask questions or whatever, I'll let you decide, okay? 50 feet from the road, that's what the state law is. So you may want to do something more than that. What's the perfect number? I don't really know. The parking space is about 20 feet. You know, do I want to use 75 back from the road right away? Do I want something more? The height, I'm sorry, I had 20 feet and then I had 15 in numbers. We're going, I'm basically saying 15. I talked to a representative of an energy company. He said his batteries in their storage containers are not more than 15 feet. He has transmission lines, those will be higher than 15 feet. But you can see it specifically said the height of the battery energy storage system structures, except for electric distribution transmission poles shall not exceed. And I have 15 feet, so
Yeah.
that's something you can decide. Fencing. We do require that it be you know, the latest version of the National Electrical Safety Code. Sound. The state law says 55 decibel, average hourly outer wall of the nearest occupied dwelling or structure. The township I was working with last week, they went down to 45 dBA and they went to property line. They didn't measure it from an occupied dwelling.
Even if the company said that it's 60 decibels there, that's what they said.
Well, the state law is 55.
We don't know where that was.
But 55 to, good point, 55 at the outer wall of the nearest occupied dwelling. So we have to figure out, do we want to
Okay.
measure to the nearest wall of the occupied dwelling? Do you want to measure to the property line? And you can ask that to the company when they're here next week or whatever, August 7th is, okay? You can ask them about that. Lighting, you must implement dark sky friendly lighting. That's right in the state law. So the impacts here are just talk about signage. And then 7B is probably where we talk about, we put in, you can require vegetative screening, all right? There's nothing in the state law that requires screening. So we put here the planning commission and ultimately here, if it's the board, you would add in the planning commission and or the township board may require reasonable measures to minimize visual impacts, you know, new vegetative screening or other measures. If you have in your zoning ordinance certain standards for special land use or landscaping use, put the section numbers in here, that type of thing. So in making this determination, the planning commission is specifically authorized to consider whether additional visual screening methods are appropriate in this proposed location or on property adjacent to a residential use. You know, we have a project, we inherited, it was approved under a different attorney, but it's in Condas Township. which is over off of I-94, and they cut 2 rows of pine trees all around this humongous, I don't know how many acres it is, and it's miles. You just drive a mile up this way, you drive a mile over this way, it's all solar panels. But the topography is such that those trees don't block a damn thing. The trees are completely all the way 2 double row around the whole, however many acres it is. You drive along the road, you see the whole thing. So there has to be like some common sense, you know, if we want to screen it, and maybe it's just that we're screening from the houses that are adjacent, right? Maybe we do the screening that way, but this paragraph here gives you a little bit of flexibility to determine what that screening is gonna be and how it might be implemented. And if there's already existing tree lines, maybe we don't make those be ripped down and put new screening in, that type of thing. We talk about generally permeable access drives. This is especially important. This language is kind of out of the solar stuff because we're having a lot of problems with runoff on some of our solar projects over by Marshall. We want everything, once you put all those panels on what were formerly farm fields, we're getting a huge amount of runoff. So here we're saying access drives will be permeable, unless you're doing it in a brownfield. Turning the page, you know, nothing's gonna be concrete or paved except for the slab foundations for structures and equipment. All right, so it's just kind of common sense. Installation and operational safety, you know, they have to be designed and constructed for interconnection to there's the MISO key and Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. That's the grid. You have to get all your permits, everything's buried underground except where, you know, you can't, where somebody tells you you can't bury it underground. Number 9, repair and augmentation. This is my law partner's big word, augmentation. If you add to the project, if you add new equipment, if you add additional megawatts, you don't necessarily have to come back except if you go over a certain increase in size. If you're within the same footprint, you don't necessarily have to come back. If you're just replacing equipment that's fallen down or needs replacing, you don't have to necessarily come back. So these are just all sample template types of provisions which you can tweak or add to. The decommissioning is really important because under the CREO, there's no provisions for you to do decommissioning. So we want to make sure you get decommissioning in there, including an agreement. Sorry about the Calhoun County there, the Van Buren, in a form recordable, the Register of Deeds, and shall include all these things in your decommissioning agreements. So we have decommissioning agreements that we've used with different projects, but you know, you're going to want to see, we know what the cost of decommissioning is. We're going to look at it every 5th year or 3rd year or whatever number you feel comfortable with. It has to be signed by the party who is the applicant, and that it will bind any successors there or assigned. So any company that they sell to or takes over is bound by the same obligations. Define when decommissioning will be initiated. Is it when there's no power for a certain period of months? Is it when, you know, the end of the land lease, whatever it is? State all that everything's gonna be removed to 4 feet below ground, you know, et cetera. All this type of stuff is kind of fairly standard. They complete it within 12 months. That like they post with us financial assurance at least 125% of the decommissioning costs before they start full commercial operation. All right, so it's kind of tricky. Sometimes you won't let them get a building permit until you get that decommissioning agreement signed and that money posted. You know, then we're gonna have to talk about who's holding that money. A lot of times, you know, I have a small township holding $4 million for 30 years. Who's gonna hold that? Sometimes we have a third party hold it.
Or a bond.
You know, if it's a bond, we have to make sure it doesn't terminate, or it has to be, it can be irrevocable. They can't pull it. A lot of times if they sell, a lot of times these projects develop, somebody develops them, they immediately sell it. I gotta make sure that if they sell it, I immediately get, you know, the new financial surety in hand. So there's a lot of kind of record keeping to this kind of stuff. And number 11, discuss use and site plan requirements. If there's anything I want to really talk about here. Preliminary fire response plan, ground cover vegetation plan, equipment specification sheets, all proposed changes to the landscaping on the site, drawings showing the proposed layout of the system, you know, all this type of stuff, heighten it, all existing and proposed building structure. So this is all very just very kind of technical, you know, template, escrow fee agreement between the applicant and the township. So generally, if you don't have an escrow fee policy already, we require you get one in place, but this says you must give us an escrow fee. Usually our escrow fees are, you know, $2,000, $2,500. For these projects, sometimes we require $10,000 upfront because you're gonna hire an engineer to look at decommissioning costs. You may hire your attorney to help. You're gonna help pay for Tasha's time on the project. So, you know, you wanna make sure that you have the money in hand for the township to hire professional consultants to help you through the project. And then it does say if you increase the footprint or energy capacity by 10% or more, then you have to go through the process, all of it. Okay? The number 12, we've added this waiver. It's kind of giving us a little bit of wiggle room in this, as things change so fast in this industry and in our ability to regulate it. And this just says because of ever-changing technical capabilities, et cetera, new technology, the township planning commission should have the authority to review and consider alternatives in both dimensional and physical requirements. I have the township I was working with last week. They wanted the 500 setback on the property line, but the first project that's in the lineup to go is in the middle of an industrial area, completely industrial on all sides, an ITC switching yard, everything. So there's absolutely no reason why you need a 500-foot setback in this area. So using this waiver provision, when that site plan comes in, and they're the same process, they're waiting for the zoning ordinance amendment to be adopted, then they will submit. We can use this to waive the setbacks in that particular case. Now here, your ultimate decision maker is the township board, so we will have to tweak this language to say the township planning commission may recommend and the township board shall have the authority to consider alternatives. And then just prior to the issuance of the building permit, all these things have to be done. So that's very important that if we're working with Tasha's company, with MTS Elegant or whatever, whoever a building official is, they need to know you're not giving out any building permits, even possibly for accessory roads or anything. No building permits until we get all these things in our heat, okay? And that's important. And then the next is just, all these is to add, the on-site battery storage is where we're talking about just accessory to your own principal use, like for my house or for my business. There's just very few regulations here, you know, building permits required. We have it drafted as permitted use in all zoning districts, but you could of course change that. You could say it's you could say it's permitted use as an accessory use in ag and industrial. You could take it out of the residential districts. You can do whatever you want with that. I'm not so sure it's appropriate in every zoning district, but that's the way it was drafted originally. But I think I would think about that a little more. Anything with more than 1 megawatt has to comply with all the applicable fire code, et cetera. Lot coverage, you need to think about that. If it's an accessory use to the principal use, are we gonna limit the lot coverage, that type of thing, and setbacks. And then we just amend each section of your zoning ordinance to put these in as a special or permitted use in each section. So that's how that reads. So that's the basic template. You can certainly do whatever you want with it. You can tweak it, you can massage it, you can,
So I did have them send me a site plan.
Mhm.
However, there are no setbacks on there because I kind of wanted to see what they were kind of proposing to kind of know.
Mhm.
I mean, not that we would curb our ordinance to have what they
Right.
wanted. But I asked 2 times to put the setbacks on it and they did not.
They didn't,
So,
so they're waiting to see
but
what
I
we,
feel like it's very close to the road. Their application has a vegetation road and then the buildings start very relatively close to the street,
okay.
but they didn't put any setbacks on.
And how big, their parcel is 10 acres? No, how big is the parcel?
Almost 20.
Bigger. That's like.
Oh, it's almost 20? Oh, okay, so it's bigger than,
So I did try to get some preliminary, something to kind of see how they were kind of laying it out, but there's no
Nothing on.
setbacks on there, so.
On this working thing, you're the lawyer on this. If they agree to this working thing, and then the commission, everything comes up to an agreement on this, and then they start doing it, and then they just start doing whatever the hell they want, As long as it's under the state thing, we really got nothing we can do to it anyway.
Well, okay, I think we're kind of saying two different things. If we approve a special use in the site plan and they don't comply with that, we can try to enforce. On the site plan, we can absolutely enforce, right? So we could say you're not building in compliance with your site plan. We can, you know, it's not a C of O necessarily, but we can pull back building permits and all that stuff. If they go to the state, if they say then, screw you, we don't like you, we're going to the state.
Right.
Then they can go to the state and the state can do whatever they want.
So even after they have approval from us, they kind of get started and like, no, I don't wanna, they can, okay.
Hmm.
So then is our.
But then would they have to stop building until they got approval from the state?
Well, they could either proceed under our,
Yeah.
and again, we'll have to figure it out at the time, but.
Right.
You know, I would assume they could build out under our plan the way it was approved, or if they didn't like that, and usually. Building permits and site plans have like a 1-year period of time where if you don't start within that period of time, they lapse,
Right.
okay? So let's say they didn't start, okay? Or their building permit was issued and they didn't, their site plan lapsed. Then we're done, okay? And I'll leave it to Tasha to look at your ordinance to see if you have anything like that. I don't know what you do.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's one thing. 12 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then they could say, you know, we just don't like the conditions you put on us. You didn't tell us you were CREO, so it's very important that our chief elected official here understands if the question comes in, do you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance? He must say, no, we do not. We have a workable ordinance. If he says yes, and we don't, we're in deep doo-doo, okay? We're gonna lose all kinds of rights and we're gonna get slapped. So we must make sure. Make them a placard that understand.
Give him a recording so that he can just play it.
So that is a very important threshold question. Okay, so if they come to, any developer comes to us and says, do you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance? He must say, no, we do not. We have a workable ordinance. Here's a copy of it. You're free to go through us if you want to. Otherwise, if you choose not to, we understand, whatever, okay? Because if we say we have a CREO and we do not, there's penalties, and we kind of saw those slides.
And if they go to the state, in your training before, you said it could take them about a year. Is
The
that true?
state has up to a year to make a decision.
But they could make the decision in 24 hours
They
if they
could.
want.
They could. I really don't know,
They have
how
up to
the
a
state
year.
is going to. They're hiring staff. They've never looked at site plans. They don't know how to do site plans. We had to consult with them on what to do with site plans. We had to talk to them, you know, one of the questions they said to us is, well, if we approve a site plan through the state, you know, we brought up, what if somebody's violating the site plan? Who's gonna enforce about it? And they're like, well, wouldn't you wanna enforce it? Heck, no, we don't wanna enforce. If you approve the site plan, you go enforce it.
You enforce it.
Right? No, we're not gonna go up. If it's flooding on the supervisor's property on Saturday morning after rain, which has happened to us, and they call the town attorney out there, if you approve that site plan and it's flooding the supervisor's property, I'm not going out. Somebody from the AG's office has to get in their car and go out. Okay? If you take on this obligation and you approve the site plan, it's yours. But that's.
They
what
have
we
no
said.
idea what they've done, do they?
Well, I feel bad for the MPSC because they didn't ask for this.
Right.
But they got it.
Yeah.
So they're trying real hard to understand stuff that they don't have any, you know, they know how to set rates. They know how to, they don't know any of this stuff. So it's going to be a challenge. It's a learning curve for everyone.
Thanks, Kurt.
So I have a suggestion.
Eleven-year-old granddaughter, wait, happy birthday call.
Since we do have a few things that we need to decide, are we gonna try to decide tonight or should we move? If we finish, can we postpone our decision and like bring it up at our next meeting?
Yes, as long as you hold your public hearing, take any public comment,
Okay.
close your public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once the public hearing's closed, then you can deliberate next meeting. I mean, you don't have to decide.
Are there any other public comments? Is there anybody, Karen?
Yes, actually, that was kind of where I was headed, looking at everything you have to decide and looking at your timeline. So you could then make some of these decisions at your next regular meeting. Is that where that falls?
Yeah, so our first step is to create a draft that we are ready to recommend to the board.
Mhm.
So the planning commission has to plug in all these few numbers, decide those few things that, you know, that we need to decide, and then we have the draft, and then that draft then gets recommended to the board. And then that draft also goes to the county for the 30 days, and then it gets to the board after the 30 days. Then it then is adopted, noticed, or put in the paper.
Paper.
And then in the meantime, the applicant will kind of know this is our draft, and then they need to put their site plan together. And kind of get that to us also, and kind of get that in the docket, to get that public hearing, those public hearings also, so. We can't.
Yeah, a lot going on at the same time, and for clarification then. This body can send the text to the county, in fact, is supposed to send it
Correct,
Mhm.
directly.
yeah,
Required.
That's
And
required.
they're not required to wait for
no,
the board.
the county only meets certain times, so if we don't.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when the 30-day clock is, but I don't know if it's once they get it, they have 30 days to review. I'm not sure exactly of that clock.
Yeah, so you don't wanna miss that.
Correct, they only meet once a month, and kind of lucky for us, they actually meet at the end of the month. So when we have our meetings, it's easy enough to get the packet together, to get to them, to have on their agenda.
And one last thing to add to that too, that I think is important, once it goes through that entire process and comes back to the board. And the board votes on it, the board can still vote with changes. So for example, if we said setbacks 300 feet. And we send it along to get it going in the process and it comes back to the board, then the board could say, we don't like 300, we want it to be 400.
Correct.
So the board will approve or reject, but they have the opportunity to still amend it, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
So there's really no reason for a board to want to interrupt the process of the county.
No,
Correct.
there is not.
bless you, Karen.
Just checking. Okay.
Future
I'm sorry.
reference, where do you post or publish when these meetings are? I lived
We need
here
your
for
name.
20 years, and I have never seen a notice of a meeting. The only way I knew any of this is that my neighbor came over and told me about it.
Could we-
Here,
Could we get your name and it's part of the public comments in the public hearing. We need your name and your
Okay.
address. I'm
My name,
sorry.
okay, my name is Lynn Alden, 49842 24th Avenue. At the corner of 24th Avenue and 50th Street.
Yeah.
but the notices are put in the South Haven Tribune,
I don't get that.
that is the public.
That is a paper of
That
record.
is the paper of record, and that is the paper that we are required to put them in.
So you don't have to tell us.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
A paper of record has to be a certain size or have a certain amount of circulation. In news, and we don't, and Columbia Township doesn't have one, so that is the closest one that we can legally put that in.
So I've been told
But the
that-
board is putting their public notices.
Yeah.
So I've been told I need to also put it in the reminder, but I just started in January and I haven't been given the authority to do that yet. So hopefully they'll be put it in the reminder.
So it's the South Haven Tribune,
Yes.
Correct.
so I have to subscribe to that.
Do they have an
You can
on?
also go
Yeah,
to our
right.
website.
Yeah.
Finish, please, let me finish, sorry, yes. They will also be in the reminder, and they are also on the township website.
Right.
And the South Haven Tribune comes to the post office for free on Mondays, so.
What post office?
The
Grand Junction.
Junction Post Office.
Okay, my address is Grand Junction, but I'm from near.
No.
So you can go to the township website, they are on there, and you can click on the planning commission. There's meetings and agendas, and it will say on there when there's a meeting. I did see that this was actually right on the homepage when you went to the website, it says right on the homepage if there's a meeting.
Okay.
You could
Now they see your website.
okay, you could give your email address and we could send out the information. Okay, that's correct, they are.
There's numerous
You
ways.
have to subscribe to the South Haven Tribune to get the notices, correct? Yes. Or go to the website.
Can you still subscribe to the website to get, notifications?
I'm not sure how that works.
You can? Yeah.
So, oh,
There's a-
Under FOIA, people can submit a subscription. There's stuff that's posted regularly, but can you also get it, you just sign up on the township website?
Yes.
Is it like a newsletter type thing?
Notification.
Notification?
Oh, so
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, then you don't have to go anywhere.
Does
You-
it email?
You go to the website.
Yep.
And you can sign up to get the notices.
Okay.
I didn't know about that one.
You can do that for meetings. Do we have it for notices too?
Believe so. We might just double check with Kara on the IT that that's plugged in, but I believe so.
Okay.
So when we notice it, it's gotta be 15 days, so I try really hard to get it on the website relatively close to that 15 days. So it's still that 15 days. I don't always make it 15 days, but I try.
But you do for the paper, so that's the legal part.
I'll post it out here in front of, in front of house.
Did anybody else? You have a public comment? Could you just give us your name and your address, please?
Becky Lee is 2267957 Street, Grand Junction. So the next step in this process, if the township is the county, so how much work has been done with the county? Because if the county's not going to support this, then it's kind of a lot of work for no reason. So I think the different things, you know, if we wanted to have a compatible renewable energy ordinance, we'd have to match the county. They're saying we don't want a compatible renewable energy ordinance. So they're just gonna develop their own ordinance. Then it has to go to the county planning commission and they recommend approval or denial. And that decision doesn't bind the township in any way. It's just required by law. They have to go there. Then it comes back to the township board and the township board can do whatever it wants essentially, right?
Yeah.
So we have to go to the county planning commission under law.
So it's just a formality. Is that what
It's a
you're saying?
formality, yes.
That adds
Allegan
30
County,
days.
they don't have a planning commission, so text amendments in Allegan County don't have to wait that 30 days, right? They can just fast track them, so, but we are still obligated to that.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a public comment.
Okay,
I guess it's that I don't know what I don't know about all this and, you know, my gut tells me, screw them, make them go to the state, but then I really understand what it is you're trying to do to be proactive because it's gonna get shoved down our throats if we like it or not, one way or the other. Then the other comment is, I just wanna say, now that I'm on this side of the table, is I remember how hard it was being on that side of the table and, I know that many of you as a resident did not like the thought of this at all, and you're just doing what you feel is best right now, so
thank you, Ben.
you're
Appreciate
not the enemy,
it. We appreciate that.
you're the messenger.
The fight is
Yeah.
definitely with the state.
What'd you say?
The fight is definitely
Really
with the
with the
state.
state, yeah, they're the enemy. So any other comment? All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing at 8:59 PM. And we can go to discussion. Do we want discussion this evening? Do we want to have a special? Do we want to wait till our next regular meeting?
So currently I do not have any business for our next meeting.
Okay,
So I don't really.
I just want to know about the timeline. Would it be better to get
I
it?
have a copy of that time, Karen.
Yeah.
Looked like you were referencing that earlier.
Yes, sir.
Can I borrow that just for a minute?
Yep.
Yeah, so our next, so we need to have the draft. Or a workable draft to
To
send
send to
to
the,
the county and to the board, so we have to, you know, those few things that you had mentioned that we need to decide.
right,
We still need to decide those few things. We don't necessarily, do we have to know what section it's gonna be in, section number?
No, so,
Or could we just do our best and?
yeah.
because we're in the midst of it.
Yes, but, when we publish it, when you do the notice for
At the end, that has
yeah,
to be
we should
correct.
have it, it should be
Yeah,
right. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, and will those change because we're working through the ordinances, will, or
So
because
once
they're gonna be
we
the same.
get to our new ordinance, the
Right.
numbers will all be different, but right now, we have this ordinance, so that's the numbers that we
Okay.
use.
Okay. Jason, were you gonna say something
Well-
on the timeline?
I think the decision on how rapidly we go through this might, Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, might hinge on, and I wish I would ask Kurt this before he left, might hinge on when they need to receive the text prior to their meeting.
10 days.
10 days? Okay, so
7, 8, 9, 10. So Friday, the 16th-ish?
Of August,
Of August.
they have to have it.
What's your meeting?
our meeting is the 14th.
Lisa might let me send it to her possibly on Monday, the 19th, but if she likes it.
Who doesn't?
Got friends in all places.
I'm wondering if we
If you
should
could-
schedule and post a special meeting
Yeah.
prior to the 14th, a regular meeting
Sorry,
to
yeah.
work through this text. I don't, just throwing that out as a,
I think that was what I was getting at. I think that might be a wise thing to do.
Okay,
I don't have my calendar, but I'll make time.
I'm free the 5th and the 6th, not the 7th.
And those are a Monday and a Tuesday?
You're on the 7th, right?
so
Some people are here on the 7th.
we are for the open house.
Yeah,
But that's at like 5:30, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
So we couldn't really.
yeah, I wouldn't want to do it. on a
We had initially said we were gonna try to send the text to the county around the 8th, because we didn't know if they needed 30 days or not, but
Right.
if that's changed,
Because we thought we would have the draft tonight and then correct.
What about the 5th, Monday the 5th?
If we're not gonna make a great deal of changes, why don't we just make them?
Yeah,
right now,
right now?
I mean, what do you wanna change?
I don't know.
I don't know.
As she walked through it, Dave, do you feel like this is pretty close?
It's pretty close, and also I'm kind of feeling it's irrelevant.
What?
It's irrelevant, because whatever we say, they can do it if they feel like, or
Yeah.
they cannot do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's, and I don't mean to be flippant, it's best guesses at this point, that makes sense, you know, there's things that are different between the battery storage and the solar and wind.
Mhm.
You know, I don't think the battery storage, need as much of a setback as like some of the solar and the wind, but, and again, we have the concern about the fire.
It depends on if you live by it.
Right, I mean, so do you want an input from your fire chief on this? Do you want,
We have been talking with our fire
Okay,
chief. a little bit,
okay.
yeah.
Good, good.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, I don't, I wish I could tell you this is a perfect,
Right,
come up with
There's
a
no-
perfect solution. I just don't know.
sandwich, any way you look at it.
A work in progress type
9 o'clock
situation.
at night, you know, I think.
Yeah, we can wait. I was just trying to rush it along.
I like that thinking, honestly,
Too.
but,
Yeah,
Because if we're only gonna change two things, we're gonna change a setback and what else?
minimum parcel size, I mean, ag is 10,
Yeah, I don't like 5 acres. I don't know where that is, but I don't.
it's on page 2. Of the,
Of this one?
yes, of that. Mhm.
Together from
Oh,
a
there.
process standpoint, could we place this in a shared doc and weigh in? Or is that deliberation and,
That's
okay,
deliberation.
all right.
So, I mean, you could have everyone's, I really don't even like sending emails back to them,
Right.
each other. Unfortunately.
I'm good with that, with whatever the board decides. If you guys want to try to hash it out now, we can, or if you want to do a special meeting, we can.
It's optional.
I vote for the meeting if I had to say.
How do you feel about a special
Yeah, I
meeting?
think so.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's something we really want to rush, right?
I mean, I want to, yeah, I will go back and look at that and make,
I mean, to a point, we don't want to
Right.
rush it. Right.
and to a point, we have
Very
to.
long. I just don't wanna-
We're going to
Okay,
be coming
um,
along, but.
So
So-
then, to add in one more meeting on
Okay.
here, we need to factor in.
So you'll
Is it
be-
5 days?
Nope, it's only 18 hours.
Yeah, for a special meeting.
For a special
Yeah,
meeting.
it's not a public hearing
18
now.
hours. Right.
And all of you are hearing it. so.
If you want to come and do
That's
this
the word.
again,
Yeah,
welcome.
y'all wanna come and,
The fifth, are we thinking Monday the fifth?
I mean,
Okay.
Mondays work for me, so.
So.
Does it work for everybody else?
Tomorrow, but I can get something drafted, posted and on the website.
Okay, do we wanna meet at 7 or at 6? And do
Earlier is
the
better.
better,
Earlier.
Yeah, I prefer earlier.
okay, or even earlier than 6?
I can't do much earlier. than
Okay,
that.
let's do 6 PM on Monday the 5th.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
I know
When you're looking at setbacks, is there any way?
His name.
Oh, we need your name. Oh, wait, no, I closed. Well, yeah, go ahead and give us your name.
There's a big drainage runs right through the middle of the property. It's unbelievable if it wouldn't be a setback for something such as this from that. I don't know if the state would have something in. It might be something that you would in your own.
In our deliberations, thank you.
That's through the participating property.
Because right through
Yeah.
the building whole side.
And the Jekyll Lake drain and some wetland.
That is.
Yeah.
And then.
Oh, that's what
That's.
you are.
Is that in blue? I can't read it.
I
'cause
think
it's
so.
too
I
small.
think that's what he's talking.
Property line gate.
Blue right through the middle.
Oh, yeah, the wetlands right through the middle.
And I'll try.
Anything in there about that, Catherine? Yeah.
There's something in there about must all required permits or approvals. Should there is a setback with our legal, for the wetlands. But if you feel like you would like more of a setback. then you can put something in there. 25 or something. Regulated wetlands, you know. Rick, I would consult the drain commissioner to see what his thought is on setback from county.
Or just a setback from a waterway.
Yeah, waterway,
Broaden it out and have.
So, yep, so this is just a very vanilla starting point you can add.
Great
Thank you.
question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right. Choking on it. Choking. Okay, are
You
there
don't like
any?
that castor oil, Dave?
Okay, so that was another, any other public, so we've set that, we don't have any other business except that, we don't have any old business right now.
So do we need to make a motion to postpone our
Postpone,
decision?
yes, probably.
I don't think you have to make a
We don't have
motion
to.
to postpone deliberation,
Okay.
just that you're gonna take it up at a special meeting on whatever day that was.
So can
I'll make that motion.
we make a decision at that, or do we have to wait till our regular
So
meeting?
you can make a decision when you notice that special meeting, you know,
Okay,
deliberation and possible decision regarding
Okay.
recommendation of zoning architects.
Okay. So instead of calling it a workshop, it's actually a
special meeting.
When
Do you wanna-
make a decision?
Do you wanna,
Okay.
are you gonna make a motion that we postpone?
Said we don't need to make a decision,
Oh, right now, decision,
but at the fifth, we
right,
can make the decision. of
and
the
then make
text.
the motion for that.
It could be an actual special meeting where we can make the decision there.
Okay.
We don't have to wait till our.
You
Okay.
might not even have to meet on the phone, so you have enough.
Well, we did plan that for a
Oh, yeah, we're gonna work on our.
public hearing for the special land use though, right?
Well,
Oh.
I don't have time to notice it and I don't have a site plan.
She doesn't have a plan done.
I tried to
Right.
get them to get me a site plan. There's no setbacks, so I tried.
Okay,
Okay, so
So,
we won't have that public hearing on that, the
Correct.
14th.
so we need to have the draft text so they can give us a site plan. So we'll have to have a special meeting for that.
okay. Outside of what we already tried
So
to,
that they can
Slot it.
give it, because their site plan has to include all of it. I
Right.
don't know that they can gather all of that. All of this.
right?
Okay,
in the.
If
in
they
time.
want it, they will.
They have, you can tell they've done this a lot, because they have a lot of the details.
So did everybody catch what's happening next? Yeah,
Monday, August 5th, we're having a special meeting to decide on the.
and we're gonna walk
pack.
through this text ordinances and decide setbacks and things like that that we want included in our potential workable
Is it
ordinances.
drafted up, what you guys are thinking by then, or is that?
No, we're gonna talk about it.
We'll make notes on this and mark it up and then draft it off that.
And then
Yep.
it gets put on the website, correct? Is that correct?
At some point, it would be on the website, yes, yes,
Okay.
in the, yes.
I know, there's a lot floating around. Yeah, so that's the next one, the next meeting that we're
We
having.
got one on the fifth, seventh, and 28th.
Thank you.
There's
Yeah.
probably some more sprinkled in there too.
Yeah, 7th and the 28th are this mostly relatively
For
the same.
the county, I have to have the minutes. I have to have the minutes from the meeting,
Mhm.
and then I also have to have the draft text.
Okay,
So I need all of those things to send to the county, so.
Okay.
But, you know, no rush.
I'm making myself a note.
Any other comments?
any other, well, I don't think so.
Okay,
Okay, any,
motion to adjourn.
Trevor seconds it, all in favor?
Hi,
Aye, any nays?
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, 9/11, 9/11.
Hey, that's why you guys get the big bucks. You're in every,
You've been waiting to say that for a while, haven't you, Beth?
right?
Thank you for coming, everyone. We appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
So we should, does anybody know the people that were sitting right there that live next across from the site?
The lady.
I kind of said hi to them and I didn't write their
Oh,
name
they
down.
left already, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're-
Oh, that sat at that table?
yeah,
Oh.
you know them? I think she said they live near or across from the site.
How can we find
I
it?
think she may be the northeast corner, which is kind of kitty corner from the whole side.
She said Vesper came to their house.
Yeah,
How do we turn off the mic?
Yeah.
I would have to say that they're.
Right there.
Yeah.
I don't know.